साध संगत जी दो ही कर जोड़ फतेह प्रवान करनी जी वाहिगुरु जी का खालसा वाहिगुरु जी की फतेह। सब तो पहला सारे जिहड़े सिख इनिशिएटिव दे सेवादार ने सारिਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ। ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੇ ਆਪਣਾ ਕੀਮਤੀ ਸਮਾਂ ਕੱਢ ਕੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਅੱਜ ਇੱਥੇ ਸਿੱਖ ਟਾਕ ਤੇ ਆਏ ਹੈਗੇ ਹੋ, ਸੋ ਅਸੀਂ ਬਹੁਤ ਬਹੁਤ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ। दूसरी गल एज यू मे हैव नोटिस्ड जिवें असी पिछली वारी थोड़ी डिस्कशन हो रही सी भी सानू थोड़ी कोशिश करनी चाहिए है वध तो वध पंजाबी बोलन एज मच एज पॉसिबल। सो मैं क्या चलो दिस वॉज अ डिस्कशन लास्ट टाइम, सो मैं क्या मैं ट्राई करांगी टू स्पीक इन पंजाबी। मैं सिर्फ इंट्रोडक्शन ही करनी है जस्ट टू एक्सप्लेन अज दे जिहड़े प्रोग्राम है अज ते। सो मैनू एक्चुअली इन्नी वधिया पंजाबी आंदी नहीं पर मैं कोशिश करांगी, एंड दैन इन द एंड जस्ट द मेन पॉइंट्स आई विल ट्रांसलेट इनटू इंग्लिश एज वेल। आई एम गोइंग टू हैंड ओवर द माइक टू आवर मोस्ट वंडरफुल, I haven't got enough nice words to say about Ranbir Kaur, she's just brilliant.
Vaheguru Ji ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji ki Fateh. A very warm welcome to everyone. Thank you for taking your time out to come here this evening. Today I will be presenting about women empowerment in Sikhi. Every year in March, Women's International Day is observed. It represents a day and a movement that is for every single girl, woman, no matter where they belong and where they live. It is a day that is globally recognized as a time to celebrate, reflect, and further the call of equality. As a mother of 2 young daughters, I often have this thought in terms of how can I empower my daughters? What can I share with them or tell them such that they become the change makers and leave their own legacy and their footsteps? I recognize that I'm probably not the only one who shares this thought, and that is the reason why I chose today to speak on the topic of empowering women through Sikhi. I will take you through a journey into the past, the present, and what the future holds in terms of empowerment of Sikh women. Let's start off with first the definition of empowerment. As defined by Oxford Dictionary, empowerment means the authority or the power given to someone to do something, or it means the process of becoming stronger and confident, especially in controlling one's life and claiming one's right. I would like you to keep in mind these key concepts that are within the definition of empowerment, which is power, becoming stronger, and becoming confident. In recent times, we've heard influential women speak of the importance of empowering girls and women. The likes of the former First Lady Michelle Obama is a very strong advocate for empowering girls and young girls especially. This topic is also very close to someone who is the youngest recipient of the Nobel Prize, Malala Yousafzai, who is an advocate for children's education, especially for young girls. It's important to empower women for several reasons. Some of them which include, but are not limited to, it includes for the overall development of a society, the economic benefits of having educated society, and gender equality, a concept that is strongly rooted in the Sikh principle. Let's start off with the history of empowerment of Sikh women. The concept of empowering women can be traced back well over 500 years ago, during the times of our Sikh gurus. Like many other social day movements and ideologies, the gurus were well ahead of their time in providing us with guidance and also providing Sikh women with equality, empowering them, and abolishing the Brahmanism ideologies that pervaded before Guru Sahib's time. Some of those ideologies included considering women to be impure, banning them from reading the Vedic literature. That included ideologies such as the practice of sati, which is the burning of widow burning. The gurus stood up to the wrongful treatment of women in society. Guru Nanak Dev Ji, our first guru, emphasized the divinity of women in a way that was way ahead of his time. Our third guru, Guru Amar Das Ji, lifted the status of women by giving them equality. He strictly prohibited sati and parda, which is the veil to cover your face, and he encouraged widow remarriage. During Guru's time, there were Sikh women who shaped our world and whose legacies still inspire us today. These women paved the way for a just and a compassionate world. I wanted to share some of the legacies of these women, and as I do, I would like you to keep in mind what these women had achieved during the times when Gurus empowered the Sikh women. Also, do note that this list by no means is the complete list. It's just a few that I read upon that truly inspired me. Starting off with first Bibi Bagbari. She was a disciple of our third Guru, Guru Amar Das Ji. Guru Amar Das Ji started the concept of Manji, which essentially is a Sikh center that is headed by someone to spread the message of the Guru. Of the 22 Manjis, 4 of them were headed by women. And what is notable is that the most difficult Manji of Kabul was headed by a woman as well. Guruji's belief and faith in the Sikh woman can be shown during a time, as mentioned earlier, women were not even allowed to read the religious scriptures. Our Gurus gave women the power that they can spread Sikhi. Next, moving on to Mata Kiviji, who we all know as the soup kitchen. She's the wife of our second Guru, Guru Angad Dev Ji. She helped establish a free kitchen that provided meals for everyone in the community, a concept that is central to Sikhism, the idea of social justice and equality. The langar eventually became known as Kivi Ka Langar. Even after when Guru's Jyoti Jyot, Mataji continued with this seva. And she probably was only the first of the few women who worked outside of their family environment while having young children, still taking on an important role and a leadership role. In addition, Mataji is the only woman of the Guru's Sahib's wives that is actually mentioned in the Guru Granth Sahib Ji. Again, goes back to the point of where Guru Gobind, our Gurus, empowered and gave the women the platform to take on tasks and roles that were not even considered or allowed before the Guru's period. Mai Bago, the warrior bodyguard. She was told to spread the teachings of the Khalsa at her home and to stay away from the battlefield simply because she was a woman. Mai Bago, not only did she learn the art of homemaking from her mother, but through her father, she learned archery, gatka, as well as horsemanship. And as we know, Mai Bago had led 40 soldiers that who had deserted the Sikh army back into the battle against the Mughals. And then she eventually later on went on to become the bodyguard of Guru Gobind Singh Ji. Mata Sahib Kaur, the mother of the Khalsa. She played an important role as she joined Guru Gobind Singh Ji and lived her life devoted to social justice and community service. As we all know, she also played a central part during the Amrit ceremony by adding sugar to the Amrit. The notable Sikh women, it doesn't just stop at Guru Sahib's time. As we move on post Guru Sahib's time, we know of Rani Sada Kaur. She was the mother-in-law of Maharaja Ranjit Singh. She was known as the first woman commander-in-chief. She became a young widow after her husband was killed in the battle. But she took this moment to transform herself into a woman warrior, donned herself with turban and weaponry. She commanded battles, and she laid the foundation for the Sikh Empire, which spanned in Punjab from late 1700s to early 1800s. She led the armies into battle, she negotiated at the diplomatic tables, and she played a very important role in guiding and influencing Maharaja Ranjit Singh Ji, who eventually became the first Maharaja under the new empire. Maharani Jind Kaur, known as the first female freedom fighter. She was known for her courage, for her energy, and her strength of purpose. Maharani Jind Kaur was very instrumental in organizing the Sikhs' resistance to the British under the First and the Second Anglo-Sikh Wars. Her revolutionary speeches and writings rattled the British, and as a result, she was imprisoned for that. Maharani Jind Kaur is credited for sowing the seeds of India's struggle for independence. As we move on to more recent times, other notable Sikh women who inspire us include Amrita Pritam, the greatest poetess. She published over 100 books, and she represented the rise of Sikh women in the humanitarian. Dr. Inderjeet Kaur, a social worker. She's the president of the Pingalwala Charitable Society, which was founded by Bhagat Puran Singh Ji with the vision of opening the doors to poor, to handicaps, and mentally ill, again going back to the core values of the Sikh principles. Prakash Kaur. She represents the many Sikh women that are fighting for women and girls against abandonment, domestic violence, and sexual assault. And the last one I wanted to share with you is Amrit Singh. She is the daughter of the 13th Prime Minister of Dr. Manmohan Singh Ji, a graduate from a Yale Law School, a lawyer of human rights, and she represents the new generation of Sikh women who are standing up for the empowerment of women, but rather than using swords, the weapons that they use is their language, their education. Well, I was truly amazed by these women. These women have left their legacy, which till date is read in history books and is talked about. They upheld the Sikh principles of equality, which is explicitly stated in Guru Granth Sahib Ji, women as equal in the eyes of God. They exemplify that a woman can lead a life that is equal to men. Unfortunately, the lessons of respecting and empowering women must be retaught generation after generation. Women are often told what they can and they cannot be, what space they can and they cannot be in. Our institutions and our households have been influenced by the impact of cultural values and man-made constraints, and they have forgotten or either strayed away from the Sikh principles and our Guru's Shabad. We can see the examples of inequality when women are excluded from doing a seva because she is considered to be impure. Even though our gurus openly challenged people who claimed women to be impure, a woman cannot control her cycles. It is simply a process gifted to her by the Creator. Taking a shower simply doesn't clean someone, doesn't make you pure. Yes, you may be physically clean, but to get mentally clean, it is only by devoting yourself and committing yourself to Vaheguru. In Guru's court, the only thing that determines a woman's purity is her devotion, which is through the mind, the heart, and the soul. Regardless of our cycles, we should be able to do nitnem, kirtan, or seva anywhere. There are no restrictions on reading and embracing Guru's bani. If the heart is craving for Vaheguru, then why place man-made constraints in preventing a woman from doing so? Women are also excluded from seva in doing the seva for the Panch Pyare during an Amrit ceremony. When questioned about this restriction, often we will hear, well, when Guru Gobind Singh Ji asked for a head, 5 men stood up. Well, the truth is that Guru Gobind Singh Ji asked for 5 human beings. In Sikhi, men and women are equal. Guru Sahib said the soul has no gender. And Guru Sahib told us that our connection is with the Guru's Shabad. As we can see from these 2 examples, there clearly is a disconnect between the equality of women in Sikh ideology and in practice. The question then becomes, how do we as a community progress forward? What is the future of the empowerment of Sikh women? Some might question that is it possible to unravel so many years of deep-seated mentality? And to that, I am reminded of a quote from His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, where he said, "Every individual is part of the 7 billion. We are all the same. We are emotionally, mentally, and physically the same. We are part of the social being, and we can make a difference in the humanity. Therefore, the change starts with us. Advocate the change that you want to see. You cannot wait for others to make the change. It starts with you, each and every individual one of us, man and women. If you want to empower our daughters, our sisters, and our mothers, the conversation starts in our homes, and in our community, and in our religious institutions. Some might label this as creating a revolution or call it feminism. However, I see it creating a voice that takes us back to our history, to go back to the empowerment that the Gurus gave to the Sikh women. How can empowerment start at home? It could be simple as reading the stories of the Sikh woman. Share her story in your families. Don't question a woman of her rights, but rather support her to become the Maipago. It astonishes me that it was only in recent years that the US Defense Department gave the permission or allowed women to fight in the front combats. Isn't it inspirational to know that we belong to a faith that where Guru Gobind Singh Ji gave the right for women well before the modern times? The steps that the Gurus took to advocate the equality of women revolutionized the society. Why have we then allowed the impact of cultural residuals water down Guru's truth? We all know for change to occur, it is not just about empowering girls and women, but it is for our brothers, our fathers, the male leaders of the religious institutions, both here and in Punjab, to understand and more importantly, accept Guru's Shabad, without any cultural or personal interpretations of Guru's Shabad. What difference does it make if a woman or a man is doing Kirtan? Vaheguru is neither a man or a woman. As we know, one is not more superior than the other. The first word that Guru Sahib revealed, and as we read every day in Guru Granth Sahib Ji, it starts with Ik, one. To me, this means that between you and me and us, there is no difference, as we are all His children and the children of the One. So why do we create this difference that only men possess the right to do certain seva? This type of thinking was banned during during Guru's time. However, we do still see the residual impacts in our homes, in our communities, and in our religious institutions. I started off the talk with a thought that I had of how I empower my daughters. Well, the simple answer is through Guru's Shabad, understanding, and upholding of the Sikh principles. However, I do recognize that the real empowerment will come with each and every one of us, men and women. We need to make a conscious decision to do something about it. For the women that are sitting here, when you leave here, make a decision that through the teachings of our Gurus and the legacies of our Sikh historical women, you will advocate the change that you want to see. Remembering that the others don't define you. Your success and your achievement will define you. Understand what is it that you want to achieve, but more so understand why do you want to achieve it. For the men, make a decision that you will provide a platform for women to be empowered and pave the way for change. Don't do what is the easy thing to do in the society. Stand up for what is the right thing to do, such as our Gurus did and have taught us. Don't restrict your daughters, your sisters, or the mothers, and put them in a box that fits our interpretation of Guru's Shabad. I would like to conclude with a quote which summarizes what can happen when someone is given the power, the courage, and the confidence, which is the essence of empowerment. A seed that is left alone will remain a seed. However, if it's given the right environment and nurtured, that seed will grow into a tree, the tree will grow into a forest, and the forest will grow into an ecosystem. Thank you. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
Thank you so much. That was great, inspirational, and I learned a lot. So now we'll open up the discussion based on Benji's presentation. If anybody has comments, questions about her talk or any other comments that you may want to make. We just ask that if you have a lot to say, that we keep it short so that we give everybody a chance to talk.
Women, the knowledge and the ability to fight with arms, and the independence that comes as a human being equally to men. And there's different, I guess, of course, ways they would train compared to others, but with every different style of individual, there's different weaponry and whatnot that I'm sure the women had on them, and the Gursikh women, and that's really encouraging actually to see that we somehow have lost a lot of the original teachings, and we know the ideology is there, but the practice sometimes is disconnected.
So why is that? Right, so in terms of, we've come from such a rich history where women weren't allowed to do something. We only got the right to vote in the Western world in the 1960s. And here we're going back 1500s, and we had this right to be right at the forefront at the same level. However, I think it's us holding our own selves back. Right, so where does this empowerment come from? To me, it comes from Gurbani, and to stand up for the truth. And not let your family, your friends tell you that this is what you can do. If it's the truth, then nothing can stand in your way. And I think that's what we have to go back to, the root cause of what the truth is.
For me, it seems to be highly influenced by other ways of life or other ideologies. Specifically speaking, is the Guru Shish tradition in Hinduism, you could say, or the Brahmin traditions. So what happens is, within the different traditions, they believe women are inferior to men with regards to spiritual practice or knowledge of spiritual practices. So even you can see that in Islam, right? Where there are women praying separately, or some to the degree, though it's not necessarily within the Islam, but cultural practices have them covering their face. And we know Guru Sahib Ji spoke against that, even though individual women's right is there to dress how they want, but they spoke against the enforced or the need to cover a woman to cover her face up, just because the reasons that they give are really not are just deficient in their stance itself, right? So what I see it is, so historically after the Khalsa were doing battles and whatnot, Maipa go leading like a general, so those individuals died off, and then what was happened was other groups helped Prachar Sikhi, but they were still highly influenced by other Hindu traditions that they were interacting with, or they might have adjusted things so that people would come and listen to them. For example, the Dasis or the Nirmale, the Mahants that helped manage the Gurdwaras. So what happened is, what I've seen from studying is a lot of the debates, or a lot of, for whatever reason, they've not allowed women to head since then, right? It's always been men usually. So that's where I see we are still reclaiming our Sikh way of life. We've been through so many atrocities, Kalukare and Kalukare, right? 3 genocides. So we are regaining and relearning to adjust our practice now in reflection of the ideology and the way of life itself. So I think that's where I've seen the difference comes from.
I think part of it as well is just through the emigration of, as the diaspora emigrated out of Punjab and came to new countries, they felt the need, especially in the beginning, to really fit in, right? So they didn't want to be the outsiders or something like that. So they started to conform to the way that society was as well, too. So that's where I think maybe we lost ourselves just in general. So yeah, we can look at external sources, but we can have to look at ourselves, as Benji was saying. Part of it is our fault too in trying to become one with society. We lost what made ourselves unique, right? So one of the favorite quotes I have is, I see it on a T-shirt saying that, why do you try to fit in when you were born to stand out, right? So we're born to do that, so we have to relearn that as well too, right? So it's about awakening that spirit in ourselves, and I think that's just like Banji said, it's up to us to train our girls, our women, even, all of us to look back at what made Sikhi so special and to empower ourselves that way as well too.
And just to add to that, I find that when we're trying to fit in, is a slippery slope you're walking on. To what extent will you give up who you are just to fit in? Because around a corner, there'll be something else that you can try to fit in to adjust to. So to keep things simple, if I may use that term, if you stick to the core. And what Guru Sahib, what baffles me, and when I read about this, and again going back to the fact that I've got 2 daughters, he's almost made it so easy for me to explain to them that, listen, you are born into a faith that where women and men are equal, regardless of what the society is saying. These women had challenges, but they stood up. Why? Because within their household, their fathers supported them. They did not tell them, no, you cannot go to an overnight retreat camp, or no, you cannot do Seva of the Prakash because you at a certain time of the month. It starts with us. And the power of change, when you start within us, it will create a ripple effect. I am a firm believer of that. It does. We hear about great people, all these, whether it's socially, and they talk about empowering. But when I was looking back in researching and trying to see speeches that were given by Sikh women or girls on empowerment, I came across few, but it was far limited. I came across speeches by Oprah Winfrey, endless numbers. Like I said, Malala Yousafzai, endless quotes and presentations she did, where she went and just basically was trying to empower women and girls with her words. But for us, we have more than words. We have Guru's Shabad, which were not just Shabad, but there's history to back that up. It just, like I said, it just makes it so much easier for me to explain to my girls, if my daughters, if they come back to me and say, well, you know what, I cannot do this because someone said so. I said, you know what? Let me share a story with you, and then you tell me whether you cannot do this because someone said so. I know it sounds simple, but in truly it is. We just need to embrace it and start within our families. And then we can take the dialogue to within our communities. Can you imagine if there is massive of us and we're making that noise and we're making that sound, which is not based on my interpretation, my understanding. It is the Guru's Shabd. The change will not be easy. For people to hear you will not be easy, because if it was, they would have done so, right? Like, why are we still going back and so much influenced by the cultural and by what we think Guru Sahib said? But that shouldn't stop us. It almost seems like we've stepped back. The momentum is there, don't get me wrong. I hear about organizations in the UK that are doing phenomenal things and sort of giving women the voice. But the question is, why can't that be done in a grander scale? The Sikhs are known that we are very educated, we have got a strong economic footprint, we've got a strong political footprint. We can use that energy. Again, it's not going back to creating, the revolution or feminism. No, it's not. It's just going back to something that we have forgotten, or we've just taken the path that, society deems it's right to do this, and let me take the easier path, if that's the case for some people. My daughters did a pink lemonade stand in a park. The essence was to sell pink lemonade, and the money that was collected was to send to a foundation called I Am Girl. A simple gesture starting in a park, because my daughters wanted to give that something back. If I was to take that example, we can take that essence of how do we support young girls, how do we educate them, so they will become the leaders, they will become the voice, so they will go up to the institutions or the society. Because we've banged that door many times, we've knocked that door many times. But the key is we gotta do something different. So let the voice come from the women and from the girls, right? I believe that if you educate someone, that is such a powerful tool. When I was reading about, like I said, going through and listening to all the wonderful TED Talks and inspirational talks that were out there, Oprah Winfrey started a school back in 2007, I believe, a school in Africa where she wanted girls to become leaders. And there are about 300 students in this school, and now she's got graduates from this school. These girls are attending the top prestigious universities in States, the Yales and the Harvards. And it got me thinking, as Sikhs, we are economically very strong. If we believe in the value of education, why don't we start that? Get our families, get our extended families, get our communities, and say, you know what, I want to set up a school to train leaders, to make leaders in India, in Punjab, or here. If that happens, the question of how do we bring change, I think it just paves the way to that, right? We do recognize that there are a lot of girls globally that don't have education. We are blessed here in Canada, we have the opportunity. But where we do see the issues of sort of more prevalent, that the inequality of women, inequality of girls, taking us away from the principles of Sikhism, might be in those areas where women don't have that opportunity. But if the men and the brothers sort of walk with them and become their voice as well, I see that as being 10 times equally powerful as a woman standing up here and giving a talk that, hey, you know what? I want to feel empowered. Yes, I can get there. I have the tools to get myself there. But you know what? If I've got the whole society telling me that we have another feminism happening here, that's another challenge or battle that we have to take on, which we shouldn't, because going back to our Sikh principles, it just goes against it.
I agree to the point you mentioned about how we are supposed to, the different ways we can empower the women. One of the things I've thought about it, for example, a lot of the community level events which happens when it comes to, especially to discussions, there's a very less number of the women who turns up. You'll see the 70% of the men are representing, and you will see only 20 or 30% of the women are coming to the public forums for the discussion or to even raise their voice. It got me thinking that women have multiple roles when it comes to she's a wife, she's a homemaker, she's a mother. When we arrange the events, we don't think about, okay, somebody might have a children. How will they be looked after when we are bringing or expecting women to come in front? So it has to come from very collective effort. Number one, the acceptance that we do live in a patriarchal society where we've been designed to think from a men's perspective. We've been designed from very young, talk like this, walk like this. That's how the society norms are. That's how you will look representable in front of the men's eyes. The thing is that there is a difference in a Gurmat culture and then in a Punjabi culture. But we do live in a Punjabi society, and that has a very strong influence. But I think it all comes from home. If we give that right sort of environment, ਘਰੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਕੰਟੀਨਿਊਸਲੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰੋ ਇਸ ਚੀਜ਼ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਿਸ ਚੀਜ਼ ਤੋਂ ਘੱਟ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗੇ, you can do whatever you want to, ਆਪਣੇ dreams ਨੂੰ pursue ਕਰੋ. I think that little nuances ends up building up that fire in you that you can do everything. Also along with Gurbani. Guru Sahib gives you so much strength in Gurbani that yes, anything is possible. And this is very human nature, or I would say human quality, is not specific to any gender. But coming back to, again, how do we inculcate in that every day? I've been talking to a lot of other friends of mine. They're very hesitant to come and speak, simply because of the fact that they've not been looked or they've been looked as, oh, she's someone who has a voice. It intimidates. It will definitely intimidate. A woman with a voice is a definition of a strength. And any strong, opinionated woman will intimidate a man because that's how this society we live in. Usually, most of the men doesn't like a woman with a voice because that's how we've been trained. I think it's not just raising the women right, it's also raising the men right. Mm-hmm. That has a very strong role to play, that how you raise men and boys in your home, that they should accept the fact that women has an equal role in terms of all the other things. Okay, I'm talking too much, thank you.
I mean, Benji, I see in the Punjabi culture, maybe the pendulum has shifted, but historically, the concept of equality, I find that I don't think it exists, right? So for me, when I say either I need to choose to walk one path, either follow the Sikh path or the Punjabi culture, because in some aspects, they don't merge. Right? And I agree with you. I am blessed. I was always given the voice to speak because my father spoke about the Sakhis. He shared that with me at the young age. So it became very natural that I embraced it. But there are women out there who don't, even if they want to speak up, it's not supported. And I think this is where, as women, we need to mentor each other and support each other. And in part of that dialogue would also I need to take my husband maybe and go speak to that other Singh and say, you know what, we've drifted from the path of what the Gurus told us. Just for a woman to speak up, again, she's not creating a momentum here, she's not disrupting your family life. That's not the essence. But we are only speaking to what we were meant to speak, the truth and what our Gurus told us. So it's not an easy change, I recognize. And when you've got the Punjabi culture sort of influence over you, then that task just becomes more instrumental, I think, and difficult. Yeah.
So I just want to recap one important thing. We're just saying that culturally, we have drifted backwards, what Guru Sahib has told us. So I just want to recap a couple of things that's happening today. Number one, in Darbar Sahib, women cannot do kirtan. In Darbar Sahib. Number two, here in Toronto and other parts of the world, people discourage women to do prakash in certain time of the month because they're in certain natural cycle. This is happening today in 21st century. So how did we get here? That's a big question, and why are we letting it happen today? So I think the key is, as Ranbir Kaur said and Benji said and Veer Singh said here, we have drifted away from contact with Gurbani and our history. We're not practicing that. Guru Sahib is saying it, but we are not following it. There's a kind of dichotomy there. And also, I've seen it quite a bit of times that if a woman have a voice, a lot of times our brothers will say sometime, oh Gursikhi vich nahi hage jada, is karke jada bolte ho. But look at our history, that's not true. How did Mata Pakar stood in front of people and also stood in front of Singhs and encouraged them to come join? I mean, that was a voice. That was 300 years ago. And Mata Kiviji, she was a leader during those times. And Mata Pakpari, as Ranbir Kaur mentioned, during those times, she was a leader. I think somewhere we kind of drifted away from what Guru Sahib has mentioned, and we drifted into the cultural norms that seeped into Sikh culture. Part of it is a Brahmanism, part of this is a Punjabi culture. I'll give you an example. Here in Toronto, a few years ago, I think I shared with a couple of my friends here. Guru Sahib Di Kripa now, a few years ago, we got an opportunity to do a Nand Karaj at somebody's, one of the Karaj Sega. So they invited us, and during those times, a few years ago, one of our sisters used to do kirtan along with us. And a few days later, I got the phone call from this individual, very well-educated family. And they asked me, oh, by the way, we heard you have Abhipi does kirtan with you. I go, yeah, I mean, that's our sister who does our kirtan with us. And so, oh, is it possible you don't bring her during the Nand College's kirtan seva? This happened here in Toronto a few years ago. And this was a supposedly very educated family. But this happens here. Well, look at the ignorance. And then we responded back, no, that's not Gurmat. And if you stand for that, we don't stand with you then. You know, this Guru Sahib ne ta, we all are equal. Sare ne Guru Sahib ne sanu bakshish kiti hai. We all stand together. Like giving examples. So where did this come from? It is that Brahminical idea that women are not pure. Women should not lead the carriage of some important carriage in your life. It should be men who should be leading it. I mean, hence, example is in Darbar Sahib, we don't have women doing kirtan today. So things like that, like, why are we here today? It's one of the reasons is that we're not bringing this up. We're too busy in other things that are, you know, more disruptive to us.
So I just want to share some hope and some positivity that I think change is on the horizon. We come from a Sangat. We used to live in Michigan, and we come from a small Gurdwara there. And there's a minimum of one Amrit Sanchar per year, and it's mandatory. Just the Sangat has decided that there's at least one woman serving as one of the Panch Pyare, and it's almost like the Amrit Sanchar can't go on unless this is in place. And there are first generation Punjabi people in this Sangat who have come together to make this, first generation, they're Punjabis, first generation Americans in this Sangat. So that's really different than what they've been brought up thinking. But they're mixed with a lot of youth who have been born here, and they actually encourage women and youth to be on the committees there, where even the Gurdwara committee, Panch Pyare, there has to be a woman serving there too. So hope is on the horizon. Girls are encouraged, and I think if we focus on these smaller pockets of Sikhs that are doing this and kind of spread that this is working. This is a regular Gurdwara. There's nothing special about it other than it's very small, but I think hope is on the horizon, and our daughters are seeing this, and the girls in that Sangat don't feel like there's anything they can't do. They serve in all walks of that Gurdwara's sevas. So hope is on the horizon.
We need to bring that model here and just spread it across.
There has been a lot of different programs, smaller programs, some maybe not so widely advertised. But even in Toronto there is. But however, as Ravi Singh has pointed out, there are still those other individuals that are following a different interpretation and which hold on to it, that no, they can't, right? So, which is, we have to, everybody has a right to practice the way they want to, and at the end of the day anyways. But if we share these programs where we'll have other programs where women have the ability to do seva as equally as men, showing, as Bandy was saying, showing the positive examples, that'll help bring change, right, in itself.
And I think in the end, I just want to say that we as women can be our worst enemy sometimes. We pull ourselves down, even in the workplace. It's like, oh, mere tu chekidan hogi, right? It's like, oh, where there's jealousy, there's holding each other back. We hardly ever compliment each other. Why is that? So we need to rise above this and empower each other and ourselves And like I think when somebody said, I have 2 boys, I need to make sure that they are brought up in a way that they understand how to respect women. And so this cycle doesn't continue. It's like the same thing that happens with the mother-in-law and the daughter-in-law, right? We've been seeing this. Sas nu di ladai hundi rehndi hai. But if I'm going to be that mother-in-law, I have that power to change for my daughter-in-law. If I continue that cycle, I'm the one to blame. So recognizing this is an issue, and starting with our own family, with our own friends, with our colleagues, that's where the change will begin.
You know, just the idea of putting a young girl in swimming, I had to hear things that, you know what, she can do any other sport. Why do swimming? My turnaround to that was, I'm getting her things that she can wear where she respects her body, but I'm not going to stop her from doing swimming because the Punjabi culture thinks after puberty, a girl should not be doing that because she's exposing her skin. So the change begins with me. I did not stop her from going. I said, you go, and then you come back and you make your talk here. So I think it's unfortunate things happen, but you just need to find those positive lights, and we need to start with ourselves. I had to hear things from males, you know what, this is not appropriate. I respect that. And for me, again, the simple answer is, you know what, Guru Sahib didn't stop the women. Do you have a better point to that? So,
Penji, who spent a lot of time researching and just came up with a wonderful presentation.